In the next 3 videos, let us study the internal features of medulla oblongata. We study the internal features of medulla oblongata by taking 3 separate sections at different levels. The lowest section is at the level of pyramidal decussation, the middle section is at the level of sensory decussation, and the uppermost section will be at the level of open medulla. The lower 2 sections are in the closed part, therefore the arrangement will be around the central canal, whereas the upper section is, because it is at the level of open medulla, the posterior surface will form the floor of the fourth ventricle. In this video, let us begin with the section taken immediately above the spinomedullary junction, or what we call as at the level of pyramidal decussation. As this part of the medulla is adjacent to the spinal cord, it somewhat retains the structural arrangement pattern similar to that of the spinal cord. So, section of the medulla at the level of pyramidal decussation will be taken at this level, passing through the pyramidal decussation. So, this is the outline of the medulla at the lower level. Please practice drawing these diagrams. It shows a ventral median fissure and a dorsal median sulcus, both along the anterior and posterior midline. There is a central canal around which the grey matter is arranged. We are seeing the ventral grey horns here, which should have continued with the dorsal grey horn. Now the dorsal grey horn shows 3 bulbous enlargements on either side. The medialmost enlargement is the enlargement for the nucleus gracilis. Further laterally, we have nucleus cuneatus, and the lateralmost larger enlargement is that of the spinal nucleus of trigeminal. Now this spinal nucleus of trigeminal is capped by the fibers of spinal tract of trigeminal nerve, both these contributing to the tuberculum cinereum on the lateral aspect in case of lower medulla. This is an important landmark, as I stated earlier, because in a patient suffering from trigeminal neuralgia, we can relieve the pain by performing tractotomy, by cutting the appropriate fibers in the spinal tract here. Similarly, the nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus are capped by the fibers of fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus. They give rise to gracile and cuneate tubercles on the dorsal surface of the lower medulla. Now within the ventral grey horn, we see supraspinal nucleus and spinal accessory nucleus. Supraspinal nucleus contains neurons which are similar to the motor neurons of the ventral horn of spinal cord. So they will send the fibers which will join with the C1 or the first cervical spinal nerves. The spinal accessory nucleus is the cranial-most end of the spinal accessory nucleus. This will send fibers through the spinal accessory nerve to supply the trapezius and sternocleidomastoid muscles. But the most characteristic feature here is the presence of pyramids on either side of the midline ventrally. 75 to 90% of the fibers in these pyramids cross to the opposite side at the pyramidal decussation to form the lateral corticospinal tract. And this crossing fibers of the pyramidal tract or the corticospinal tract will separate the ventral grey horn from the rest of the grey matter. The uncrossed fibers will descend ipsilaterally as the ventral corticospinal tract, or they may join with the ipsilateral lateral corticospinal tract. Let us see the rest of the ascending and descending tracts here. Along the lateral margin, we find the posterior and anterior spinocerebellar tracts. On the inner aspect of these tracts, we also see the lateral and anterior spinothalamic tracts, as well as the various other ascending and descending tracts of the spinal cord, like rubrospinal, vestibulospinal, and tectospinal, or the ascending tracts like spinotectal, spino-olivary, and spinovestibular tracts. In addition, on the medial aspect of the ventral horn, we find the medial longitudinal fasciculus, which will also be descending into upper segments of the spinal cord. The rest of the lateral area is filled with the reticular formation. So, in this level, that is at the level of pyramidal decussation, the most important feature is the fibers of the pyramidal tract or the corticospinal tract crossing at the pyramidal decussation to form the lateral corticospinal tracts. This will separate the ventral grey horn from the rest of the dorsal grey horn. Now, dorsal grey horn is showing 3 bulbous enlargements: the gracile nucleus, cuneate nucleus, and the spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. The rest of the tracts which are ascending or descending to spinal cord, they will all be located either in the lateral funiculus or in the posterior funiculus, that is fasciculus gracilis and cuneatus. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this video. You can visit the site for other neuroanatomy videos. We will now move on to the next section of the medulla oblongata taken at the level of sensory decussation.